this was billed as a question and answer. But I thought actually it would be nice just to have devotees maybe share. You can ask a question, I guess, and we can all discuss. But perhaps there may not be a question, but just a reflection, or we've been discussing about the Goswamis, and maybe you have something you'd like to discuss. So we have this forum here with many devotees. So yeah, go ahead.
It's related to Tirtha, that we discussed
Tirtha,
before.
yes.
One time I was in Jagannath Puri for 10 days with Dr. Steve. Steve is living in Antwerp, he's a boy. He did a lot of book distribution. And at one time, Steve, he was distributing books in the border city in Holland. And he goes, and there was a bank. And so all of a sudden, two guys, they come out of the bank and they run away. And Steve runs after them. They turn and they shoot him 4 bullets in his.
Oh my God.
So Steve was wounded for life, very bad. So he was very happy to come with me to Jagannath Puri. We had a wonderful time there. We went to different places in India. And in Jagannath Puri, we would go, like in the morning, we would go to the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur, then we could go to Sida Baku, then we would go to Tota Gopinath, so we had our whole thing every day. It was very wonderful. And one day, we're coming back, we had found actually, only at the end we had found the ISKCON temple, with the very beautiful deities. And then we started to go and eat there at noon, and one day we come back, and we walk on the dike, of the ocean. And on the dike, just like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there is a girl lying on the dike, just lying there, like completely, knocked out, And I get very, I don't want to deal with this situation, it's strange to me. I just walked on. But Steve, with his big compassionate heart, he couldn't handle it. So Steve went back and he wanted to give a note of rupees. And she rejected him, she didn't want to have anything to do with that. So that was kind of a story which hit me, and I think a lot about that. But then you read these quotes about Jagannath Puri, that anything you do in Jagannath Puri is devotional service. Just walking in Jagannath Puri is parikram.
Yeah. And
just lying there on the dike is actually considered to pay obeisances. So she's doing devotional service. So that kind of it's kind of very stimulating for me, because you can be in states that you feel like completely lost, it's like, and then, but still, in that kind of situations, you can do devotional service. Now I'm kind of making my parikram path here in Radhadesh, because you can go down there, and just before you go on the road, you can come up behind the fence, and there's actually a path. And I invite everybody to go a lot on it, that the path comes more and more like a path. And so the question is that, obviously we accept these quotes in Jagannath Puri because, for example, the ocean has become if you just take bath in the ocean, you just get rid of all your karma, because Lord Chaitanya said that after the burial of Haridas Thakur. So that's very established, The question is that if we do parikram here in Radhadesh, can we also get similar? Is there any basis to believe that every step of course we know that we walk around Tulasi, we have our Tulasi, and if you do that path that I'm doing, you walk around Tulasi, you walk around the deities, you walk around the devotees, whatever. So there must be a benefit in that. But to what extent can we believe, or to what extent is the basis to believe that there is similar impact in doing a Radhadesh parikram?
Thank you so much. Such a nice question. Yeah, just before I answer that, you don't know who you're meeting actually in Jagannath Puri. Shastra explains that even today the demigods are coming to Jagannath Puri taking darshan, but in the disguise of just like Orison widows or something. And you know how it's the demigods, right? There's 3 signs. You know that it's a demigod coming in disguise to take darshan. One sign is if their feet don't touch the ground. Another sign is if their body casts no shadow. And another sign is if you ever meet someone who never blinks. Yeah, Shastra says. So if you ever meet anyone like, so watch out closely, because it said even today the demigods, you know, one area of Jagannath Puri is known as Svarga Dvar. Dvar means a gate and Svarga means the heavens. So it's explained that from this location in Puri, the demigods, it's like a portal through which the demigods are actually coming to Puri, even today, to take darshan of Jagannath. And all, generally cremations, they are also taking place in this Swarga Dwar, because it said that people get... Once I was in Puri, and in the middle of the night, I decided to try to go to Puri temple very early, and it was very dark. So then I was just walking, then I saw some men around a fire, so I just walked towards them. And I was just chanting, and then I came to the fire, they were just heating their hands, and I looked in the fire and I was like, oh my God, it was like a dead body. Inside it was like a burning corpse. I was like, oh my God. And then I realized I just walked into a cremation ground, because this is actually where, you know, they cremate the bodies to. Yeah, so Puri is, you don't actually know who you're, oh, thank you so much. Hare Krishna, thank you. You don't actually know who you're meeting in the Dham. Dhamvasis are very special. It's said that there's 3 reasons why we go to a Dham. One reason is that people will go to the Dham to leave their body. They just go there and they say, okay, that's it, now I stay here for the rest of my life, and then leave my body from the Dham. Another type of person comes to the Dham because they have service, they have some seva to do. And a third person comes to the Dham only for some short time to get some inspiration and mercy, and then they leave, not to stay there longer. So generally it's said, unless you're one of these 3 categories, you shouldn't be in the Dham. Either you're for seva, for some inspiration, or you're preparing to leave your body. Otherwise generally we don't encourage devotees actually. Even Mahaprabhu was very reserved. So yes, your question is about the envisioned tirtha, like Radhadesh or Bhaktivedanta Manor or New Vrindavan. How do these actually compare to Bhoma Vrindavan? Is it non-different? Are they just as powerful? Actually, in Navavraja Mahima, Shivaram Maharaj talks about this, because he says now we have New Vrajadam, and therefore devotees may ask the question, if we're living in New Vrajadam, do we now have to go to Bhoma Vrindavan? Because tirtha is a tirtha. He explains in Navavraja Mahima that even though the tirtha can be an envisioned tirtha, Vrindavan, Bhoma is still extra special. Because the potency of an envisioned dham depends on 2 things. Number 1, it depends on the purity of how much the community is keeping Krishna in the center. If the purity of the community is very high, then the potency of that envisioned dham is very high. But if the inattention of the community is there, then the impact of the envisioned tirtha is less. Whereas in Vrindavan, even if people are doing, not such good things, still Vrindavan's potency is never diminished. And the other aspect of an envisioned tirtha is it very much depends on your consciousness. So if you're walking around Radhadesh and if you have that very conscious awareness, deep awareness, then yes, you're walking in the Dham, because Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. But in Vrindavan, even if you're not having that, of course, if you have it in Vrindavan, it counts for more. But even if you're not, it's still having an impact. And therefore, the envisioned tirtha has the potential of the Dham, of Bhoma, Vrindavan, but we can't say it's a replacement. Boma is still special. And therefore, we're living in the Dham, but we still go to Vrindavan, like that. Yeah, Santosh, thank you. Very nice. Yeah.
Maharaj, you mentioned the three reasons for calling it Masterminds, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then the third one being pedagogy.
They can reach the minds of others, yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us something about that. I'm into marketing and these things. Pedagogy sounds fun to me. And I heard about this like common play at the time, popular, and then they turned it into hums something. Does that ring a bell? I think it's like a... Anyway, it was basically the use of a commonly popular play, a drama, which then they spiritualized.
Okay.
Hamsadutta?
Hamsadutta?
Hamsadutta, yeah. That's it. So I was just wondering if you could say something about pedagogy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first thing about reaching people, they say if you want to take someone somewhere, first you have to meet them where they are. Often one of our biggest problems in Krishna consciousness is we're trying to take people to Krishna consciousness or to Goloka Vrindavan, but we already start like up there and people are not there, you know, and then we already start explaining from here, but people are here, so you have to meet them where they are. You have to talk their language. So I would say when you're trying to reach people, I would say there's three layers. The first layer is your content. Your content in what you communicate about Krishna consciousness should meet the needs, the interests, and the concerns of the people. We have so much content in Krishna consciousness. You know, like one devotee came to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, how do I explain to the people that Ugrasen had hundreds and thousands of gods? You know, like hundreds and thousands of gods. How do you like explain that? Ugrasen had all these gods, like the palace is not big enough. And Prabhupada just looked at him and he said, you don't have anything else you can share with him about Krishna consciousness? It's like, why bring that up? Something so inconceivable at this point. Just bring up something relevant, according to their needs, interests and concerns. And then those things we'll deal with later. So always bring up relevant things. Yeah, needs, interests and concerns. So the first thing is if you want to meet people or reach people's hearts, get your content. In Krishna consciousness we can talk about anything because the philosophy is comprehensive. Second thing is your means of communication. You see, it's not just about what you say, but it's about how you say it. So, you know, there are so many means of communication. Just like here, Rupa Goswami, he was not just writing the philosophy, it was picture poetry. He was using visuals. Not only can you use visuals, you can use audio. Not only can you use audio, you can use drama. So many of our shastras are drama, isn't it? Prabhupada actually said to the devotees, you will conquer England through drama. He said that actually, yeah. So, you know, you can reach people. So look at ingenious ways to communicate with people, yeah. That's also an important thing. And then the deeper thing is compassion. Yeah, people often, there's the language of your words and the language of your tangible communication, and then there's the language of your heart. And even if sometimes you get the content wrong or you get the communication means wrong, if your heart is in the right place, people pick up on the love. This person is trying to help me, you know. It's interesting, Mukunda Maharaj, he came up the Bowery. It's amazing. He came, in 2002, he came to the manor because it was the 30th anniversary, 2003. It was the 30th anniversary of Shri Radha Gokulananda. And he was talking, I remember this, he was talking about coming up the Bowery the first time and seeing Prabhupada in the Bowery. And he said, I came up and I heard Prabhupada. And he said, I didn't understand what he was talking about. But the urgency in his tone made me think, this man has something important to tell the world. I don't know what it is. I don't know what his message is. But there's something about the tone of his language that carries such an urgency that whatever he's saying is important. That was a very interesting, when you're communicating, there's so much non-verbal communication. Like when someone is speaking, they're communicating their taste, their faith, their enthusiasm, and the person's picking up on all of that, right? So there's a deeper, we reach people, like I mentioned this the other day, you can't take people to a higher place than you've reached internally yourself. You see? So much of it is about our own. So I think these are some things, and then I think the other thing is we just got to experiment and we got to try different things, I think in the name of sometimes preserving our tradition, we forget that the acharyas were not just preservers of tradition but innovators. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was such an innovator. You know what he said once? People were criticizing him. He said, the Ganga is always changing its course, isn't it? Over time you see the rivers change there. And he said, if you come and tell me that I've always been bathing at the Ganga at this spot, and therefore now I should continue bathing at the Ganga at that spot, then you're a fool. Because the Ganga changes its course. So if you want to get the mercy of the Ganga, you also have to move. So we also have to remember that the acharyas were such great innovators. Prabhupada was just, he was just coming in. When Prabhupada came to Butler, he said, for 2 months, I was just observing the people. I was just observing American culture. It was like fascinating for Prabhupada, Like Prabhupada went into the public toilets at the... he went to the public toilets at the, station or whatever. And then, you take a shower, after you go to the bath, So like he's like taking a shower in the thing, This concept of putting in some coin and then getting access, Prabhupada was like fascinated. Prabhupada saw a garbage truck, he was fascinated. He said, what is this? He said, Prabhupada, it's a garbage truck. They throw rubbish in there. Prabhupada said, you should throw the whole material world in there. So, Prabhupada was observing, he was meeting the people, understanding. So we have to do that, I think. Just experiment. I feel like for me, like the last year of my life, I was sharing this with some devotees, I feel like Krishna gave me some inspiration to try and just be more creative, I felt like for many years I was consistent. I mean, I'm a fool, but I tried to be consistent in preaching or sharing Krishna consciousness. But I don't think I was very creative. And then I realized being consistent but not being creative is not good enough. And if you're creative but you're not consistent, it's also not good enough. So this year I realized, consistency is okay, but we've got to be creative, try new things. And then it opens so many doors and you're like, wow, there's so many ways to reach people. So you're creative, use it. Some thoughts. Yes.
The yellow button off.
So many of us are in college or entering college in the next few months, and I've experienced that. I've been studying now for a while, and it's so hard to live in the outer world, and you get so easily influenced. And I've been meditating a lot on that verse that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to the Goswamis that, you know, keep doing the best you can, but in your heart keep secretly Krishna. But it's so hard not to get influenced and not to let your heart be open when you meet people who are really nice. And how can we protect ourselves yet not be cold and still like manage to be integrated in society?
You know, I felt like in my life I learned so many things about Krishna consciousness from non-devotees, you know. It's like, sometimes I met people of other faiths. Sometimes I met people of no faith, but who had just such amazing qualities. And I was like, wow, like, you've got all of these qualities and you don't even do any spiritual practice. That's amazing. And I learned so many things from them. So I think the first thing is, it's not like, of course, our Shastra does say that, asat sanga tyag e vaishnavachar, that, you know, a devotee gives up non-devotee association. But at the same time, I think, you know, there's so many things we can learn. And I think when we're focusing on learning, grasping the essence, trying to take encouragement, when we're focused on being around people and serving them, then we stop getting so affected that, you know, we're so worried that I'm going to be affected, I'm going to fall down. Sometimes I think it's our own narrative in our mind that, like, oh my God, how can I make sure I don't fall down? How can I make sure I don't get influenced? But you could also just be like, what can I learn? How can I, you know, connect and share? How can I be a servant in this situation? Sometimes they say offense is the, not as in aparad, but offense as in going forward is the best form of defense. So sometimes when you're with other people also, instead of just trying to like constantly have your guards up, so it's like, yeah, no influence, no influence. If you just come with a different mood of like, how can I serve? How can I be an uplifting influence here? How can I be Krishna confident? You see? Like I used to, before I joined, I needed to get enough money to go India because I wanted to get out of the UK and I just wanted to go India first. But I needed some money. So I became a baggage handler at Heathrow Airport. So I was the guys who like wreck your baggage, you know, like throw it across, like the fragile ones. I was a good guy, but I didn't do it. So I was doing that. And you know, it was a real like, it was all men. And it was all like, you know, the staff room was like, it was all like, the, you know, in English they say the lads, you know, so like really like, bit like tough, gross people, like, you know, like, so like in an 8-hour shift, you only do about 3 hours of work, so you have 5 hours spare. So I was like, what do you do? I'm not going to sit in this staff room for 5 hours, you know. So then what I used to do is in my break, like in between jobs, I would go like to like gate number 999, like on the other side of the airport where no one was. And then on the chair, I just like, you know, sit down and just like chanting japa or like reading. And then one time I was like in this like gate 999 with no one there. And I was like cross-legged on the seat. I was like, Hare Krishna, I was really getting into it. And then I heard this sound like, Sandeep was my name before. It's like Sandeep. I was like, wow, is this like a voice from the sky or something? Like, and I opened my eyes and it was one of these guys I was working with. And I was like, oh no. And then he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, I mean, this has gone too far now. I just have to be honest, you know. So then I said, yeah, I kind of do this meditation. And he was like fascinated. He was like, yeah, I'm reading this book and this and that. Anyway, before I knew it, he went back. He told everyone in the staff room. And by the time I came back, they like rolled out like the red carpet for me. Like I became like the guru, you know. And then like every day I would go into the staff room and I'd just be giving like Bhagavatam class, you know, like everyone would be like, yeah, what about this? What do you think about karma? And this, like everything changed. And I just realized that if you're a little also, of course we have to be careful, but if you're a little open, if you're Krishna confident, then many opportunities will come for you to share, and that's the best way in which you can serve others and also protect yourself. So I would say, be cautious, be aware, but also realize that, and universities are amazing, people are open, people are searching, people are away from their normal environment, so they're willing to try new things. And don't underestimate people, and you'll find people who are like, and you'll find a good sangha, and it will work, So it's try it out. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I have a question in regards to renunciation. When we have, let's say, bad habits and we try to make a drastic change and change all of them at the same time, it ends up being a flop because it's too drastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering in regards to renunciation and letting go of certain things, is it possible to do it too drastically? Should it be taken one step at a time, or because it's in regards to spiritual life, should it just be like a
I think it was, who's the guy that founded Facebook? What's his name? Zuckerberg, right? Yeah, I think Zuckerberg, he said, made an interesting statement. He said, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and we underestimate what we can do in 10. Which is an interesting observation, because we tend to be like really impatient and then we try to do all of this stuff in like 1 year, but because we don't have that longer term vision, then we underestimate what we can do in 10, right? Because we all want to just get it done now. So I think that approach is like, it's like small incremental changes. The most important thing is that when you make a change, if you're able to sustain it and then move on to another change, then you begin to develop momentum, you develop some confidence, you develop some faith that this works, I can change. You see, a lot of the times we can't change is because we've lost faith in ourselves that we can change, because we failed so many times, because we set such huge goals. Like even Rupa Goswami says that it's an offense to make a vow which is beyond your capacity. He actually says that's an offense, because you actually disempower yourself. So definitely it's like just go step by step and small incremental changes. A mantra that really helped me in my life was progress, not perfection. So every day look for progress and don't just look like how far away you are from perfection, but just what's the next step. And I think if we do that, and I think also one important thing in changing and improving is also to recognize and look back and see how much you have improved and how much you have changed, and feel the gratitude for that. Like today Shamananda talked about gratitude. I really like the way one devotee explained gratitude to me. He said gratitude is like digestion. So it's like you put so much food in your mouth, and then when the digestion takes place, then two things happen. Firstly, you get the benefit from all of that food that you've put in your mouth. And the second thing that happens is you open up more capacity to put more food in. But oftentimes what happens in life is we achieve many things, but if we don't stop and acknowledge the good things that have happened, the ways in which we have been successful, then we don't fully internalize that change, and neither we open up the opportunity to make more change. So be kind to yourself. Yes, you have changed, you have improved. We may not be the pure devotee that we want to be, but things have improved. And in that way empower yourself to move forward. So changing is not an easy thing. But it works. It was nice in Switzerland last year now. Satyananda Maharaj invited me to come to the retreat with him, and the topic that he chose was the art of transformation. And it was a really nice topic, because I thought, this is what makes Krishna consciousness real. If there's no transformation, this is just a religion. If there's no change, then this is just a set of rituals. And I thought, like, the biggest faith that we can give ourselves and the biggest way to actually preach to the world is to show that Krishna consciousness transforms people. And so, we have to believe that that's possible. We have to associate with devotees who are finding that transformation and create that energy. And it will be possible, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have a question about tirthas and the connection with the divine, the connection with the particularly the physical place, the embodiment of the spiritual in the physical. So, to what extent do we as devotees have a duty to engage with the pollution, the physical pollution of the Yamuna or Govardhan or the forest of Rajan? What is a spiritually engaged way to do that? Beyond, of course, our own practices, but how do we engage with the sort of physical manifestation of that?
Are you specifically referring to Vrindavan and the Dham and what our responsibility is to deal with the physical aspects of it in terms of the pollution, and how do we do that in a Krishna conscious way? Yeah. Yeah. Well, just like when Srila Prabhupada talked about temples and he was very concerned about cleanliness, and he said cleanliness is next to godliness, and he was so concerned about that because how we care for our environment very much is a reflection of our own consciousness. When the devotees were cleansing the Gundicha temple, then Kaviraj Goswami says, as they cleansed the whole temple with 1,000 water pots, their minds became as spotless as the floors. So there's a sense in which when we care for Krishna's energy, when we care for Mother Earth, when we have that sensitivity, then it reflects all the way back into our own consciousness. And that's just on a general level. What to speak now about the Dham? The Dham is Krishna's own home. Anything you do in the Dham is magnified. That means violence in the Dham to the environment is hugely detrimental to one's spiritual life, and one who then goes to make an improvement. And definitely that is a beautiful devotional service. So yes, we have to make the Dham pure, like not make the Dham pure, the Dham is already pure, but like cleanse it and make it at least it has to be in order. We don't need to unnecessarily beautify the Dham, because that's not what the Dham is meant for. Like you sometimes wonder why the Dham is not just full of flowers and full of all these things. And the Acharyas actually explained that if people would come just for that, seeing that, then they would not have the impetus to go deeper, to find the deeper beauty. So we're not going to unnecessarily just try to artificially do all these things to the Dham, but at least we want it to be clean and pure and let its own beauty come forth. And so yes, there's so many devotees who are doing so many wonderful things, and just like the Goswamis were told by Mahaprabhu that excavate the holy places and make them known and invite the whole world back here. So all these endeavors to serve the Dham in this way are so important. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers something.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Maybe you can share something about what you do. No, it's a nice thing. I think you can share with the devotees. Yeah.
Well, I work in the environmental field, and I was thinking about this in the context of the Yamuna, because the pollution of Yamuna Devi is so severe. But there's a beautiful book I read which said the state of the Yamuna that we see in Kalyuga reflects our consciousness. So that's the Yamuna that we see. And that's a beautiful insight. But the problems are so manifest, and it affects Brijvasis. And sometimes it can feel so complex and so difficult. But still having that ability to engage to the best of our ability. And Is that raising the profile of the Yamuna? Is that looking at the rivers near us and connecting that? Or how do we explore that? To me, it's a very interesting question, so I just wanted to hear your thoughts. I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah. No, but it's a devotional service, it's Dham Seva, and it's Krishna's playground. So Vrindavan is Krishna's playground, so we want it to be as beautiful as possible for Krishna to perform his pastimes there. Yeah, thank you. Last question, last two.
From another pocket. I was trying to understand what's happening in this situation, because you can subdue the enemy more easy if you know the weapons they possess, they use. So I was thinking in a situation in a very contaminated state of consciousness in the beginning. If we do some service, for example, and we tend to do something more than is expected, and then the mind comes and starts to tell us, just do it and you will be recognized like you do a lot. So I'm trying to understand the way the mind is working, if it's just reflecting our state of consciousness, or it's just kind of trying to boost our false ego.
So what's the relationship between the mind and the consciousness? Like the activity of the mind and one? Yeah.
Why is it happening that these thoughts are there if you decide for something else? Because you are of this state of consciousness that you are trying to be recognized or something. Or
so where is that coming from? Is that what you're asking?
Or it's just trying to somehow make him proud.
Yeah. For example, you have this light, so there's pure light there, and then according to the shade, the light then comes out and shines forth in the world a particular color, not because of the light, but because of the shade that's covering it. So the mind is something like that. These thoughts, we can say in one sense, they're the consciousness. Yeah, like we say, this devotee he's not in the best of consciousness, he's in bad consciousness. The consciousness is in one sense pure, but because the consciousness is now coming out through the contaminated mind, it's being displayed with all these thoughts, for name, fame, and so on. Here's one way to understand your mind. It's like an internet browser. Right? In an internet browser, you have a home page. In an internet browser, you have a history. In an internet browser, you have favorites. In an internet browser, you have autocomplete, so that when you type www.a, boom, a list of options come up according to where you've been before. So in one sense, it's not the internet browser coming up with all the options. You're the person operating the internet browser. But according to how the internet browser is configured, the home page, the history, while you're using the internet browser, you may be seemingly moved in a certain direction. So the mind is like that. It's not causing you to do activities, but the impressions, the memories from previous lives and this life have and therefore you're inclined in a certain way with thoughts and all these things. But you can reconfigure an internet browser. You can change the home page. You can delete the history. You can adjust the favorites. You can add plugins. You can put a virus checker on it. But even when you do all of that and you browse the internet, still there might be pop-ups. The mind is like that. Even tomorrow, if you cleanse it, if you purify it, still any thoughts sometimes come up. But ignore it. So the process, Krishna says, when Arjuna says the mind is more difficult than to control the wind, Krishna says, Svayam mahabaho is possible. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena chagriyate is possible by practice and detachment. So think of your mind as an internet browser that over time you're reconfiguring. And so that eventually Krishna says, Bandhuratmat manastasya. Deliver yourself with the help of your mind and not degrade yourself. Then the internet browser of the mind helps you to go to where you want to go, instead of pulling you away in a direction that you don't want to go. So that's all it is. It's possible, but it takes time. Got to train the mind. Mind gym. You've got to go to the mind gym. 4:30 a.m. every morning. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Like everyone signs up to a gym nowadays, right? But no one thinks of the mind gym. Like that's the most important thing. Mantra. Manastrayate, to free the mind from all this artificiality, to free yourself from the prison of the mind. This is what we're trying to do. Okay, you get the final say.
I had actually 2 questions, hopefully they'll be very quick to answer. So one was, you mentioned about creativity, especially specifically to reaching out, that we should always find new ways that we can see. Even traditionally, the Acharyas have always done that. But at the same time, yes, how do we find a creative way in reaching out to people, at the same time not change our purity, which comes within the Vaishnava culture and the traditions we are given, which ultimately, if they're spiritual, they never change. So how do we not, how do we protect ourselves from in that service of reaching out, but not changing things that will protect us in our practice?
Yeah, so as we know in Vaishnava life, there are principles and there are details. So principles are unchanging things that stand in all times, places and circumstances. There's never going to be a time when there's another book that replaces the Bhagavatam. No, it's the Bhagavatam. There's never going to be another mantra apart from the Hare Krishna mantra. That's the one. But then there are details. We may read the Bhagavatam on a Kindle, or on small volumes, big volumes, 1 volume. We may chant the Maha Mantra in different melodies, using different instruments, that's a detail. So we got to understand what is a principle and what is a detail. Now, Shrutakirti Prabhu was once massaging Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Prabhupada, how can we understand the difference between a principle and a detail? It was like, boom, he just hit the right question. And Prabhupada was quiet. And then Prabhupada said, that requires a little intelligence. It's like, oh no. So it requires a little intelligence, it's not so clear. So therefore, there are all these debates that go on in the modern day Hare Krishna movement. Is dhoti and kurta and sari a principle, or is it a detail? Is Indian cuisine being offered to the deities a principle or a detail? So then through Guru Sadhu Shastra discussion amongst the community of devotees, we have to try to understand. And where there's doubt, then we always go towards preservation, because it's better to err on that side. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says 2 things of his things that spoil devotional service. He says niyam agraha and niyam agraha with a long A. Niyam agraha means to not accept the rules and regulations that have been outlined by the acharyas. In other words, to neglect them and just do what you want to do. And then he says you can go off on the other side of the road, which is niyam agraha, to hold on to those rules and regulations as the be-all and end-all, without understanding the purpose and the ultimate reason why they're there, and miss the essence. So you can go off the road by too much creativity, and you can also miss the point by too much conservative preservation that doesn't be sensitive to the times. Both things can spoil our ability to reach people. So I didn't give you an answer. it requires a little intelligence.
And then the last question I actually asked recently to a few devotees, no one would answer, so they suggested maybe I should ask it in the question and answer, is I've heard many times that basically every tradition mentioned as a gotra, family tradition, spiritual tradition, and I heard that ISKCON devotees come in the tradition of Achyuta gotra. Where does this come from? How do we specifically identify as from the Achyuta gotra?
My understanding of that is that, and I stand to be corrected on this, but my always understanding of that was that we just say that because once you become a Vaishnava, you're in Krishna's family, so you're Achyuta Gotra, like Krishna has accepted you. Like it said that at the time of initiation, Krishna accepts you like as good as himself. And therefore, because of your commitment, you've basically been accepted into the family. Vasudeva Kutumbakam, you're in Krishna's family now. So I don't think, my understanding is that when we say we're Achyuta Gotra, it's not so much that there's some mystical thing that all of us were part of some lineage and now we've all congregated. No, it's just you join Krishna's family. You're part of Krishna's family now. And that's why Prabhupada, like sometimes we wonder, why don't we have a center in Jagannath Puri? Like we do, but somehow ISKCON didn't, especially in Prabhupada's time, because Prabhupada was protesting. Prabhupada was absolutely outraged and disappointed that the Pandas would not let Western devotees into the temple because they weren't born in the right Gotra. And Prabhupada would say they've dedicated their life, they've given everything to Krishna. Do you think Jagannath is just the Lord of Orissa? He is Jagannath, he's the Lord of the whole universe, and I'm bringing the universe here and you don't let him in to see Jagannath. Prabhupada said, then I won't go in either. So therefore Prabhupada was not happy about Jagannath. Therefore he told Govinda Maharaj, Bhuvaneshwar, you can open the temple there. So Prabhupada was in a protest. So yeah, but nowadays when we go to Jagannath temple, then we tell them, that's what I said at the gate. I said, Achyuta Gotra. They wouldn't let me in also. Because I went like this and they said, well, you're obviously ISKCON and, from my accent, I was trying to be as like Indian as possible, but I guess one thing is I'm very tall and generally Indians are not, so they thought I was a bit strange already, and then they kind of heard my accent and realized I was from London. So, they stopped me at the Simhadwara. So I came out, I thought I got to get in, so I just went through the other gate. I got in. Whether I could see Jagannath was my materialize, but I stood by the Garuda Stamba, so maybe Jagannath saw me. My saving grace. So yeah, Achyuta Gotra. My understanding is it's just we're in Krishna's family now. But I don't know if anyone else knows anything on that. But, oh yes.
No, I was just remembering Prabhupada actually said at that time that Lord Jagannath will pack his suitcase and he will come to us. He will not stay in your temple because he is not Orissanath. He's Jagannath.
Exactly.
He will pack his suitcase and he will come with us.
Yeah.
So he did actually.
Yeah, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita it said that, that like Haridas Thakur would not go. He was respecting, because from a Mohammedan family, but Jagannath as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was coming every day to see him and deliver the Jagannath Prasad. Yeah, so, yeah. Achyuta Gotra. Thank you so much for your association and your patience. Please accept my apologies if I said anything which was inappropriate or erroneous. And wonderful to be in Radhadesh. And you're all invited to the manor. I'm still an ambassador of the manor. So please do come. It's a very special year at Bhaktivedanta Manor. It's the 50th anniversary of Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda. So in 1973, Srila Prabhupada, by his divine grace, brought their lordships to Bhaktivedanta Manor, most beautiful deities in ISKCON. One time the devotees were actually having a debate, like which are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON. And I said, Radha Madhava, Radha Landanishwara, Radha Gopinath. And then one devotee stood up and he said, "You're all wrong." I was like, wow, he's confident. And then he said, the most beautiful deities in ISKCON are the deities that you serve with your heart. And everyone was like, okay, you win. So yes, but they are very beautiful. So yeah, please come. There's so many things going on. There will be a Kirtan festival, maybe not as big as Radhadesh Mellows, but over Gaur Purnima. London Rath Yatra will happen, big Rath Yatra this year. And then over Janmashtami, which is the time when Prabhupada installed their lordships, there'll be a big festival. So yeah, please come. You're welcome. And
what
thank
will be
you.
the Rath Yatra, please?
Actually, we just had a meeting on Sunday to decide. There's two options, so it will come out soon. Either it will be in May or it will be in July, sorry. One of those, yeah.